Hello, everybody. I'm Shara Ogan here with the Chris Griscom in Germany. She is a leading authority on reincarnation and a whole bunch of other topics. I am so honored to be here with you and so excited for the conversation that we're about to have today. And we were just actually talking right before we turned on the camera about the light field around you. How do you radiate so much light?
Well, it's very interesting. We always want to think it's our light, but it's really not my light. It's that I am actually pulling cosmic light in through me and radiating out. It's one of the things that I always feel is so important for everyone to learn. Because if you're radiating out light, then the messages that are coming from you will be messages of light. There'll be messages of love. There'll be messages of seeing others. And so we want to practice that art of radiance. And so that's how it happens.
So simply, can you explain that really simply?
Sure.
What you mean by that?
Sure. First of all, let's start with the conversation of knowing that so often we take in the energies of others.
Yes.
If they're depressed, we become depressed.
Yes.
If they're angry, we go away and we feel angry. We don't even know why we feel
Yes.
angry. So first of all, when we're looking at ourselves and why we behave or what's happening in our life, I always say, ask your body, is this mine? Because so often, the things that you feel, they're not yours.
Right. So what do we
You've
do?
just sucked them into someone else. What you do is it's simply a law, it's a cosmic law of energy, which is that instead of pulling from somebody else, you see, the thing is that when we were in our mother's wombs, we sucked in from their umbilical cord all of their feelings, all of their blood, all of life force energy.
Yes.
And some of us never get over that pattern. Little children always do that. And so we have to learn to radiate out. The thing is that we do have an auric field. We do send out messages, like me, don't like me, believe me, don't believe me. And everyone reads us. Nobody's hiding anything from anyone, not on spiritual or psychic energy levels. So what this teaching is to always take the energy from the cosmos. That way, if you're loving someone or healing someone or helping, you're not using your energy. Because if you're using your energy, you're gonna expire. So you take the infinite cosmos, which is made of light, as are we, and you draw that energy in, down through the top of your head, into your stomach. This is the seat, the center of the emotional body. This is where we get caught. And from here, we open that by radiating that energy out. And so when we radiate that energy out, it allows us to be present, but also not to be so small, because we hide a lot. So when you radiate out your energy, then your presence is stronger. And it says, I am here. And this is what we need and what we want right now. Not to play small, not in this lifetime. To radiate out and say, we are here, and we are here together.
We sure are.
Yes, we are.
So tell us talk about reincarnation. There's just so much to say about that.
There is.
Take it away.
There is. And it's fascinating. I have been doing it for 66 years, so I'm pretty much one of the world, for sure, experts on reincarnation. And of course, the belief in reincarnation is thousands of years old, that the soul comes again and again in a body. It's a very comforting idea, and there is truth to it. When I was young, I would help somebody. I would never tell them their lifetimes. I would allow them to find it inside their own genetic makeup. The soul speaks to the body. The mind of the cell holds incarnational memories, and also the memories of your father's father's father, your mother's mother's mother, which is psychogenetics. So we have this whole realm of information that comes before our physical body.
Are people always able to access the information?
Yes, some people automatically. Children do it all the time. I always say to parents, when you're little, especially around 4 to 5, 3 to 5, I'd say, children start playing by themselves, and they'll go, okay, I'm the mother and you're the this. And if you would listen to them, you would realize that very often they are recanting their own incarnations. And so I would always say, listen to them, and then say, oh, was I there? Yes, you were my child. Oh, and how did we get along? And who died first? And you can help them to clear lifetimes that have caused them to create contracts and vows with you that bring them in as your children, because indeed they probably were your parent in other lifetimes, or your lover, or your teacher, your enemy, or whatever it is. So you can clear a lot with children just by listening to them. So some people automatically, we have that deja vu. You go to a place, or you hear a language and you say, I know that language, or I know this place. That deja vu thing. It's not just this flicker in the brain that some people like to say it is. No, it's actually a memory system that we have. The purpose, though, of exploring our incarnations is not to say, well, I was a king or a queen, or I was somebody, I was a great healer, but to see what the soul is doing as it evolves, how it's showing you that you know all of these things, you have these gifts. And you have been the fool, the killer, the great being, the healer, and the victim, you've been all these things. And the purpose of looking at an incarnation is to see what's happening now. Because some people say, well, why bother with past lives? They're not past. They're going on now. You're picking the same people, the same themes that you had in other lifetimes. Again, I would say it doesn't matter if you believe in reincarnation. You could think these are stories from your forefathers. It doesn't matter psychogenetics, how you got it, but you're stuck with it. You are repeating that pattern. We want to go free. So in our work, the idea of seeing an incarnation is to look at the theme of the evolution of the soul. Why did the soul choose for you to be the victim, the killer, the great being? What did you learn from that? How can you relearn it now? Because when you see an incarnation, the energy comes back to you. But there lies the crux. You need to clear karmically, you need to clear energetically, so that you dissolve the crystallization of that lifetime, so that the power or the love or the knowing comes back as pure energy into your life now. And that's how doing incarnational work alters the path you have in this lifetime. So it's not past, it's just deep.
Simultaneously, maybe.
Yes.
So we have to find somebody to do the past life reincarnation work with in order to actually do the healing.
Sometimes they come up spontaneously. If you ever have a lifetime come up spontaneously, even a fraction of it, you want to release it. And the way that I would say to release it is very simple. Ask your body where you hold that memory.
Yes.
And what frequency of light, because it's light that brings us into body, it needs to release it, even if it's a good memory.
Yes.
Because, for example, you might have been a very high priest in some religion, but you had no compassion. Or you sent your people out to kill the other guys, And so you come around now and you pick up that thread. So you had one element, but you didn't have the hologram of the potential of that knowing. And so that is why it's very important. So the second part that's really important is that, for example, people teach techniques now, well, you can do this or this, you can do self-hypnosis or whatever and come to a lifetime. But you will never see the possessive energies that are part of that.
Those are hard to see. Teach me more.
Yeah, they're not only hard to see, we can't imagine them. And so we'll see only what is safe for us. We rarely will see the lifetime that we, did something that in today's world would be unacceptable or would be considered the Dark Lord. Or we would see it only from the justification. And so the possessive energies that cause that to be coursing through your blood and your body now, that cause you to create enemies or to have the experiences you have that come from that source, that lifetime, or many lifetimes in that thing, you won't see those. And in fact, when you open the sleeve into that vignette, that incarnation of the soul, you will activate those energies. And so you're just likely to have that possessive energy become louder in this lifetime. You will magnetize to you things that you wouldn't magnetize to you before. So I recommend it. And of course, I've learned that from working on myself.
But if we have a feeling that's familiar, like a deja vu, and where it's somewhere, and you suggested we feel where it is in our body.
Yes.
And then what's the
and then
next
we would
step?
imagine, ask your body what color, what frequency of light it needs to release the content, to release it, so that the energy can come back to you in pure form and support you now. Even if you did something unspeakable in another lifetime, and believe me, we all have, over and over and over again, but you had the power to do it. The victim and the victimizer are one. They choose each other.
Yes.
It's very hard for us to understand
Right.
that because we can't see the hologram, but it is true.
Yeah.
So you don't want to activate that energy now. You want to be able to release it. That's why it's really important to have a good person, if you want to do it, who knows, who's been trained about possessive energies. It's not to show you the boogeyman. It's just to say all of these things are true. I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of the boogeyman, the bad guy, the killer, because that's all inside us. And so it allows me not to be so judgmental. But, you might think, ooh, this is terrible and frightening. And ultimately, none of us are really terrible or frightening. We're just humans.
And if we have a resonance of a past life that's good, where we are strong or a warrior for good,
if there is
can we strengthen that within? Can we strengthen those genes or neural bonds within us?
What we want to do is to strengthen this sense of self related to it. All incarnational work, all therapy of whatever kind it is, all spiritual energies, it's all about our sense of self. How do we really underneath feel? Are we blocking ourselves? What I see today is most people play small. They don't dare show that they have
we don't believe
talents.
In ourselves.
We think that our intuitive energy is just a coincidence,
right.
Because we've been raised in societies that say, prove it.
Yes.
Prove it or it doesn't. It has no value. Instead of, well, it has value because it brings purpose or it brings recognition or understanding into our lives. And so, again, if you have a deja vu of something that's wonderful, maybe it's just you go to a place and you feel happy there. Then you just allow that to move into you. We need to give ourselves experiences, not just talking heads, not just understanding or thinking about it or analyzing it, but allowing the body to experience it as if it were now. In the same way, in this lifetime, we know now that if you have a memory from your childhood, it will be, the memory itself influences today, but today influences the past. It influences that memory. So you will remember certain parts of that memory in a certain way. Somebody else will remember it completely different.
And then our current experience will change our memory then?
That's right.
And change what
it
actually
changes
happened.
how we perceive it, and therefore our sense of truth about that, which reflexes back to our sense of self.
Is there something about 7 lives past and 7 lives future?
The Native American has a wonderful expression of that. Not necessarily about reincarnation, but about the future, let's say. They would say, 7 generations into the future are you responsible. They're talking about the legacy, the ripple out of your experiences, how they influence the choices and the way that your children's children's children live. And it's a beautiful concept when you think of it again. For me, it's not, oh my goodness, the responsibility of that.
I know.
But again, for me, responsibility is a place where you pull up and you say, I can do this.
Yeah.
You're not responsible for the outcome. You're responsible for saying, I can participate. I have something to give.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
it's a motivator to change yourself
because
whatever aspect of you is going to be impacted for 7 generations.
7 generations into the future. And it doesn't matter, by the way, if you ever have children. Because
that's an interesting one.
Because psychogenetically, you influence people around you.
What does psychogenetics mean?
Psychogenetics means that genetics means a kind of inheritance. We think of that as being physical, but we have emotional and spiritual DNA. So psychogenetics refers to those, that psychically you pick up or you bring in the legacy that has been left to you or passed to you by others who influence you. And that could be a church, a teacher, a blood relative.
Right.
Notice how miraculous this is, that children that are adopted very often begin to look like their parents. That's psychogenetics.
Yeah. And another example of that might be where I changed like my happiness level, going from depressed to super happy before I had my baby.
Yes.
Hence, she came into the world inheriting the happiness.
That's right. And of course, she may have passed that to you someplace, you know. I mean, there's a dance. She chose you.
Yes.
She may have been your mother at another time.
That makes sense.
So there's this thing that her presence and knowing that she's coming, or her knowing you, brought in both of you that freedom to be happy.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
How many characters are we actually dancing with? Because when I keep looking at my past lives, it's like, one person is my husband, my father, my daughter, and my mom. I mean, so 4, and the 4 keep dancing in different structures.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, like, how many soulmates do we? Soulmates might be a different conversation.
Yes,
but I would like to get to that one.
Yeah.
How many different characters?
It can be
dancing with?
infinite. It can be people that you only saw or only related to for a moment in your childhood, and they come up in an important way in your life now.
Mm-hmm.
They only came up for a moment in this lifetime because you were finishing something off, or you were activating some point of reference of who you are through them, or they through you, because there is that contracts and vows between you. But very often, again, our blood relatives and our sexual partners are the ones that will come up the most, because in this lifetime, certainly, they're the ones who can teach us the most. They can pass through our defense mechanisms, they can pass through our facades, our masks, and get right down to what we call the piercing of the heart. So they come up a lot, because we know them. That's how we've come together. Now, of course, spiritually, my higher self would say there's not a single person on this planet that you don't have some reference to. That's a lot. But we have a very small genetic pool here. There's 7-point-something billion people on the planet, and no one is further away from you than your 44th cousin. Genetically, that is the tiniest pool ever. It's nothing. So
that's
we
amazing,
are all
actually.
connected. In ways that we forget. So sometimes, again, talking about the victim and the victimizer, someone will come in and play your bad guy, and you go, oh, this person is terrible, terrible, terrible. But if you were terrible to them or someone else in another lifetime, and so on a soul level you say, well, I need to see what that's like from this side, so I'll learn. Who's going to show it to you? Your friends aren't going to show it to you. And they're going to say, but that's against cosmic law. I'm not going to create that karma for me. Only those who really love you will be the bad guy for you. It's a very interesting concept, but it is true.
Okay, let's talk about soulmates.
About soulmates?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you won't like my answer. My higher self's answer is that you have, for example, when you say soulmate, meaning a lover, a partner in life, my higher self says you have 5,000 potential soulmates, if you want to call them that, in a lifetime. 5,000 people that you have traveled with in other lifetimes who can come in at different times of your life to help you to illuminate something. A classic example of that is the Uranus return, which is 39 to 42, where Uranus is a planet that pushes us into the future. Get rid of the old, go into the future. It also happens to be women's sexual prime. So women often feel that they find their soulmates at that time. Wow. And sometimes it's, okay, I've been married for 25 years, and here comes my soulmate. I have never felt a sexual energy or a spiritual energy that's a part of my body, part of the opening of my heart, like ever in my life. It must be you. And so in comes this being, they divorce, or they get rid of their husband, or husbands get rid of their wives, and very often, 2 years later, that person's gone. They're gone because they only came to help you get out of something that was not serving your evolution.
Okay.
Now we need to learn to get out of relationships, to end and begin, from places of clarity and compassion and truth. Not just, I can't do this anymore, or we're growing apart, but from a different perspective. But so soulmates, anybody can be your soulmate, anybody that comes close to you. It's how you want to allow it. And the problem with soulmates is that we project onto them that they are the source of our happiness, they're the source of our life force energy, they're the source of our safety.
I thought they were always the ones that met your unmet needs as a child in some way.
Not just as a child, because you've been
as
a
an
child
adult,
a million
we're
times.
still not met. Yeah.
And in your emotional body, you could be 60 and still be a child emotionally. So how do they meet those needs? Sometimes the way they meet those needs is by giving you what I would call the cosmic boot.
Right.
But we humans, we feel that way about God. We feel that way about authority. We're always waiting for someone to balance us. And I feel that is because of the history of Atlantis, where they were because of galactic influence, they were very into genetic manipulation. And so at that time, there was a homogeneous kind of energy. The male and the female were enveloped in one, And then they decided to explore that, to see what it was that was yang and what was yin, what was male, what was female, so they divided it. And that was 5,000, 15,000 years ago. That created that search for your other half. And so we fondly project on that and call it our soulmates. And but I think
But isn't there something to filling the other?
There is, but it isn't that person is really going to complete it.
Right.
What happens is usually it feels complete in the beginning. And then as you grow along, you grow, and so you don't need that as much, or your needs change. And then you think it's the person, when really it's you that's changing. I feel that in the future we will come to being married our lives, which will be much longer than 100 years, and we'll be able to do that because we will be able to recognize in a person that they have been our lover, our teacher, our enemy, our child, our friend. We will see them from all of these perspectives. A good relationship moves back and forth. Someone is your partner, then you're their parent, then they're your parent. We play all these roles with each other. When we learn how to do that, not from the emotional level, but from a compassionate spiritual level, that we can offer up, as you're saying, what are those needs that we have. Otherwise, as long as you're looking for it outside you, you are looking at an illusion. And we call it soulmates. And it's human, and it's sweet, but in the end, if we could just be our own soulmate, we would see the beauty of those that we call soulmates. We would see how they fit in our lives, and we will be able to not just depend upon them to bring us that life, but we will be able to give it back to them as well.
Of course. Do you see us going more in the direction of living in communities?
I think that we've done that. We haven't done it very well because, again, our primordial energy, we have primordial bodies, and so our psychogenetic inheritance from primordial times is survival. So we don't trust humans. We're always thinking, how can I be the head of the group? Or how can I be seen? Do they recognize my power? Or am I the rebel? And as long as we get juice from being the rebel, and many of us do, we're not going to do well in communities. Yeah. I feel that we will take on community energy, and we may have to in the future because we may have to share our resources in ways that we're not doing now. I certainly think that we're on the brink of changing our monetary systems.
Yeah, let's talk about
we're
that.
Changing how we live. We used to think the more successful you were, the bigger the house you had to have. We're finding people are saying, no, I don't need this big house. I would rather travel the world. I need to be able to go out from this hiding place that says who I am and instead be who I am. Show who I am by the way I experience life or I interconnect. So I think that we are coming to a way of seeing each other beyond the stereotype the way we have, you must be married or you have to have a partner or the partner looks like that. That's why we are at the same time tightening our illusion about people who choose people from the same sex or they want to change their body structures, So there's a lot of shouting about that. But ultimately, it will go away because love conquers. You know.
So let's talk a little bit about like the dissolving middle class and the disparity between the upper and the lower class, and what's going to come of that. And you know, most of America's in debt. What's up with that?
Yeah, that is because in America we have instilled deeply in our psychogenetics, the American dream. You can be whatever you make yourself to be. Well, the problem is that we've made ourselves to be successful by presenting the look of success, the material of success, instead of the heart of success. And so that's what's happening. So there's that disparity that's going on. But that has a purpose. And the purpose of that is it's helping people to come together, put their voices together so that they have more power, and call for that. This is why our banking system, this is why our monetary system, on a global level, is falling apart. Because we cannot continue that disparity. You know?
Well, in some ways, it feels like it's expanding. You know, the rich are getting richer because
that's true.
Their investments are growing more.
That's right. If you just watch, in the next
couple fall apart.
Years, it is falling apart.
Should we take our money out of the investments?
Well, I would never say that, but I would say that use life. Mm-hmm. That idea of hoarding, for example, put it in a bank and hoard it. That's not a that
invest in yourself. That was your advice of the day.
That's right. That was my advice today. Invest in yourself. You know. And the more that you invest in yourself, the more you have to give.
Yes.
You don't give out of disparity. You don't give out of that lacking of something. So I feel that all of that is coming to a change. That's why many very wealthy people are losing money right now because of what's happening on the planet, because we've gone to a global thing, which is something that my higher self has always said, what happens to you happens to me. Whether that's the pollutants that are traveling in the air or in the ocean, or the financial situations, or the whatever they are influencing. The outside world influences the inside world and vice versa. And so I feel that we are kind of in a crisis of that. Yeah. There is a breaking down. The rich have been getting richer, but that's not working. And so I am happy that many rich people are beginning to see that it's a gift for them to have that. Yeah. But we have to clear from our Judeo-Christic, especially, concept that money is dirty. Yeah. That if you're rich, you must have gotten it by hurting somebody else. And see that really we want to support the rich of saying, look what you could do with it. How you could teach the world, how you could give the tools to others. I was a part of, the Peace Corps, and the idea of the Peace Corps. It was actually a phrase that I gave to the Peace Corps. I was still being conservative at the time, but they said, why are you joining the Peace Corps? And I said, to help people, to help themselves. Yeah. And that's it. So we can use our wisdom, we can use our love, we can use our money, we can use so many tools to help someone to be able to help themselves, because then we create that wonderful ripple, that ripples out, and they are helped, and they become stronger and safer, and then they help somebody else.
What's one part of the world right now that you think needs the most help? Like whether it's in the consciousness?
Probably the United States of America. What I have seen in the world, if you look at the history of the world, for example, there has been Spain and Portugal and Germany and different parts of the world that at one time, or places in Latin America, the Mayans, places or Egypt, where for a time they were the apex of the pyramid of life. Right now, the United States has been holding back. And I feel that we are losing that place because we have so much connection in the world now. And we have to care about the world, not in the way that we have done. This is a conversation of power. And all countries have learned it.
How are we losing it?
We're losing it because we are playing king of the mountain. Right. We're saying, for example, I've always found it fascinating that we have all these laws about you can't have nuclear power because you might misuse it. Then why do we get it? I've always found
like
that
the whole
really
Korean
easy.
thing.
How do we pull that off?
I know. Right.
And then so what do we have now? We have all these countries saying, "I'll show you."
Right.
I can't trust
Machoism.
you not to use your atomic energy against us because we already have. We dropped the bombs on Hiroshima. Of course, I always say when I go to Japan, my state is where the atom bomb was first dropped. It was dropped in New Mexico. It poisoned New Mexico long before it poisoned you. You know, and you may have psychogenetic resistance to that. So you just don't know those things. But so what I would like to see is that, because I think that we as Americans, we are generous and we are open, you know. Bring us your poor, you know, it's part of our idea of building our country. And instead we're saying, I'm going to go and I'll help you, but then you owe it to me. You know, that's buying and selling. We have buying and selling when it comes to our soulmates. We have buying and selling.
Tit for tat, you mean?
Yes, I do. I'll love you, but what are you going to give me back?
Exactly.
You're going to make me feel safe, or you're going to give me your money, or what is it?
My husband and I, we tease each other about that.
Yeah, tit for tat.
He's like, what are you going to do for me? I'm like, what?
That's
What
right.
is this tit for
I
tat?
call that the buying and selling. The buying and selling. So I think that the United States needs to find within it its essential message, so that it's not, we'll help you, but you're going to pay us for that. You're going to pay up for that. And because what it's brought is, of course, which is, you know, human, jealousy, anger.
And tensions with a lot of other countries, right?
Yes.
Complex.
And people have not, and in one way, that is one thing that our president, in a very strange way, has tried to communicate, that, you know, you don't get love by saying, oh, we'll give you everything. You know, people want to feel strong. They want to feel equal to you. So we have to give wisdom. We have to give teaching. We have to help them to help themselves. And then not be surprised when they said anything, we're equal to you. You know, we have to find that way to say, okay. And so let us put our heads together, our hearts together, our bodies together, and make a more beautiful world. And we can't have some countries, you know, say, oh, cut down your rainforest so that we can buy your soy products. Well, that's not a good idea, because the whole world suffers without oxygen if you cut down. That's the sacredness of the biodiversity of a rainforest, for example. So every nation has a story. Every nation, like every person, has particular themes that are part of what the culture or the people that chose to be born there. You know, it's always interesting to me why you chose to be born, whatever group you chose to be born in, and what is the story of that. And this is the beauty of incarnational work, you know, to kind of see, first of all, that you have been every religion, every race, every language, every place. In my Nijoni school, when children, or they could have been 30-year-olds, had trouble with the language or had the fear of another race or something like that, we would always say, now ask your higher self to take you into a lifetime related to that race.
What is Nijoni?
Nijoni is a Navajo word, and it means the beauty way, everything in balance.
I love that.
And so it was the name of a school that I created that was for, you know, children. We had an academy. We were the first peace studies academy in the United States, for example. And we also had an academy of the environment, of business. We had a little being school. We had all of these different levels. And the purpose of it was to show people how to find themselves and the gifts that they had in the world. That you didn't have to rotely learn something, but that you learned it holographically. And therefore you learned it experientially. And it changed the way you used the information. So I might impart some kind of information to somebody, and then I'd say, now give it back to me in a different way. Show me what you can do with that. How does that make any difference in the reality that you can see? And so that's a great way to learn. I don't do it actively now. We do have intensives, which is what this is.
Yeah, this is an amazing intensive. I highly recommend it. But you know, for a lot of the world are unable to come to your intensives for whatever reason. So
that's why I have all these books. You know, I have things on the internet. And I have this wonderful program called Global Echelon, which does cost a little bit. There are things that are free. For example, you can join a group which is called Human Nature Alliance Echo SOS, where when something is happening in the world and we want to help, we can use our consciousness to help. So we send out a message, you receive that message, and then in your own way, you meditate or you pay attention to what is happening in the environment there, and it makes a difference. So when you extend the energy out, it helps you to have a sense of purpose. You know, we so often tag our sense of purpose onto what we do, and we don't tag that back to what we do could come from our human heart or from the wisdom of our beingness. You know.
Can I ask you something about that? Because I know a lot of your work has to do with the prison system, and somebody who, I believe you spoke something too that had to do with they never had an access point, a reference point for love in the first place. Yeah. How do they learn? How do they get that point for love, that access point for love?
Well, these are systems, institutions and systems that we need to change. I've worked a lot, again, in penitentiaries around the world, and I'm not doing that now, but I have. And first of all, the great lesson was whether it was a rapist or a killer or whatever they were, I saw their pure soul. And so we can't know why someone has done something that way. But whenever I would say, and how was your childhood? There was nothing but abuse, fear, no value to their lives, hatred.
Everybody's soul is pure.
Everybody's soul is pure. The
and
soul is untouchable, which is different than the spirit.
Right.
But but when we come into even one lifetimes, of course, from my perspective, we choose a lifetime when we are punished like that. That's a longer discussion.
Right.
That doesn't make it okay. But when you're asking why does someone become someone who is pathological or hates people or hurts people? Because they have no sense, they have never been taught any kind of sense of self that taught them to care about somebody. That's why animals are so important for kids. We need to care about a plant.
So at what point can you actually start to teach somebody who's...
You have to teach that in your children. You have to teach the parents that.
Well, how do you teach an adult that?
And there are for example, in Sweden, in several of the Indonesian and the Scandinavian countries, they have diminished their prison societies by doing programs that allowed freedom, that allowed this exploration, so that instead of I am justified because, we have given them a sense of you could make a difference. You could help somebody. In fact, even in the United States, judges are now very often, instead of giving them a prison sentence for small things, they will say, which is something that I've always advocated, let the one that they have stolen from or done something to, let them come together. It's really interesting what happens when the victim and the victimizer come together. And then give them a very stylized, let's say, capacity to make that up, either to them or to society. You know, okay, you will do service to community. And suddenly, instead of, oh, I have to do this service, they take pride because they see that somebody else is worse off than them. Or that, you know, by doing that little gesture, taking care of something, they could make a difference for that person. And so then they begin to change the sense of self. And that's what takes us from the terrible, painful isolation of someone who is dangerous to society into someone who can find a way to dissolve the repetition of their past. So if somebody has a terrible childhood, you can be pretty sure that they will repeat that on somebody else. If you have a parent who is very strict with the child, just look and see how they were raised. And you will see a parent that raised them in exactly that way. So that is their repertoire. And so those are the things that we open up. We give them a different experience. And that is what allows them. I'm not saying that some people who are really psychotic should be running around. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying one thing that I was really stunned by was you could take someone who was put into prison for a small thing, they stole somebody's pocketbook or something like that. They will come out a seasoned criminal. They will come out saying, I am justified. And that's why we see them. They go right out. But this time, instead of stealing the pocketbook, they steal and hurt, or they do something bigger than that. Because all the other people in prison have taught them that they have to.
And also they've lost out on life, so they actually deserve more life.
Yes, and they feel that with every core of their being. And so those are not the answers. The answers are evolved consciousness. When we really see what it is that is needed, what is really needed. And more and more as life goes on, as time goes on, we will see that people need to participate. Thank you.
Thank you.